Euston. Euston Station. I never pass Euston without feeling homesick. Hiraeth, we call it. Hiraeth, longing, and more than that. For to me, an exiled Welshman in London, Euston is the gateway to Wales. Few exiles in a great city can think without some emotion of the railway stations which are the gateways to their home. Whenever I'm around Euston with a moment to spare, I go in past the great triumphal arch. I cross the busy yard and go over to the indicator to see if there's a train due to leave for Wales. If there is, I buy a platform ticket, I go along the train and wait for it to pull out. To the litter of boys and girls who always collect near the engines of big expresses and take down numbers, and indeed to most people, it's just another train. As it slowly pulls out of the station into the daylight, I watch it plunging back into the darkness. Dark tunnels that burrow under North London. But in my mind, I am far beyond them. Far beyond the suburbs through which it will be going, Kentish Town and Hampstead and the home counties. Far away to my childhood. Back to the valleys and the mountains of my home. Back to the streams and the sheep and the castles. Back home to my youth. 5 hours and 30 years away. I remember best the look of Wales, the things that settle in my mind like photographs in a family album. Not perhaps my own little bit of it, my own village or valley, but its long, wide, sweeping look, the poetic look of the country. Wales as I like to remember it. The Wales I want everyone to see. But I remember, too, the changes in the landscape which would disturb the mind for a while. But the storm would pass. Caernarvon, peace under heaven again. Ah, yes, the wide sands of Wales, lonely and vast in the grey light of stormy days, or cheerful and bright in the long sunny mornings. In those days it seemed to be always summer, golden sands and the shimmering sea out in the great bay. At this moment I remember only the happy things of childhood, the sound of breakers, the feel of sand between my toes. What a fascination they had for me, those boats that were anchored in the estuary. And down by the quay I hung about for hours, drinking in the smell of the paint, listening to the noise of the creaking stays and the talk of the sailors. Then the wonderful moment when we are scudding away from land out into the open water, off on some adventure. But life was not all holidays of blue water and golden sands. Up in my valley, the everyday world was waiting. The world of farmers and sheep, the way by which we lived. It is the noise of sheep and the look of sheep that come to my mind when I think of my valley. And the great excitement of the yearly sale that stands out most. Every September they had them. on one farm or another, and that was the day that all the farmer's hopes were fixed on. All the trouble he'd had that year with his sheep, the lambing and the cutting, shearing and washing, dipping and rounding up, all this was leading up to this one great day. People would come from far and wide. Up the valley would come the procession of men, all wearing stern and serious expressions. Thomas and Johan and Ianto. The same sort of seriousness, somehow, that I saw when they were listening at the Eisteddfod. Of course, it wasn't only sheep at the sale. There was a lot of cattle being sold, too. But I didn't know very much about wintering bullocks and promising bulling heifers. But I certainly knew enough about upland grazing sheep to sense the excitement when the auctioneer came into the ring. He used to announce everything in 2 languages, first Welsh and then English. Then he'd explain all the terms of the sale. But of course they knew them already. They'd heard them dozens of times before. And then he would start. "Come on now, man," he would say. "A fancy pen I have here. Every sheep sound in eye, tooth, and foot. You find me a wrong un, and you can have her for nothing. What am I bid now? If you won't have them, I'll buy them myself." He'd jibber-jabber his incantations, and with a sharp clap of whip on boot, he would sell that lot, and then it would start all over again. As I follow in my mind the train from Euston plunging out into the distance in the past, what else do I remember from all those years ago? There are 7 wonders of Wales, you know, although there's many a good Welshman who wouldn't be able to name them for you. One of them, I know for sure, is a waterfall. Eisteddfod, it's called. Oh, we have some wonderful waterfalls in Wales, you know. People come from all over the place to see them. The Swallow Falls, the Spout of the Cane, the great spouts of the Torrent, and hundreds of others. I remember, too, what fun we had in the rivers and pools into which they tumbled. The delicious, cool feel of pebbles under one's feet, the slippery rocks that we were warned to be careful of, and the way we always managed to fall in before the day was through. And then I remember scrambling up the rocks on the lower slopes of the mountain and longing for the day when I should be old enough to climb them, to tackle all those rock faces and crevasses of one of the Welsh ranges the great Himalayan climbers practice on. But no, I was never destined to be a climber. A good hike ending in a scramble was as far as I ever got. More than anything, the castles of Wales come back into my mind. Caernarvon, where Welsh history is made, and where, from a window in the keep, perhaps, Prince Charles will step onto a platform and be presented to the people as Prince of Wales. What adventures we had as children, hiding in the endless stone corridors and twisting stairways of the ruined towers. And Conway. What happened at Conway? Edward I built it, and that's all that comes drifting down from my schoolroom history, except that the walls were 15 feet thick and had gardens along the top of them. Harlech, to me, loveliest castle of all, frowning out over Cardigan Bay, reeking of blood and history, refuge of a medieval queen, 4 towers and a marching song. Or Gwydir, a fairy tale castle, its gardens enchanted by the colors of peacocks and their harsh, exotic cries. And Port Merion, not a castle this, but an hotel. Just as exotic, though, and built like an Italian hill village with a campanile, a piazza, and a garden full of statues. That's one of the wonders of Wales, too, in its way. And the great bridge that links North Wales and Anglesey, with its graceful Victorian sweep of chain. And the other wonders, what were they? One of them I know was Llangollen Bridge. When I was a boy, Llangollen was just another quiet little town. But things have changed since those days, for Llangollen itself has become a wonder of the world. It is famous now as the place where every year the international Eisteddfod is held. Boys and girls from Bali and Norway, Russia and Spain, Italy and India, boys and girls in their national costumes come here to sing and dance, to make friends and enjoy themselves. They go home understanding each other at least as well as people do after those elaborate political conferences we're always hearing about. So I go back to this Wales as often as I can. I take the train from Euston and go home. Home to the mountains and bays, castles and waterfalls. In a train that will carry me through the marches and the wild border country, take me back to the land of my youth. To Wales. 5 hours and 30 years away.